Welcome to the Coached Success Podcast. This podcast is aimed at connecting you with the ways top performers think about challenges so that you can adapt your thinking accordingly and live your version of ultra extraordinary. So today on the call we have Gareth Duncan. Gareth, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, and you, Ka?
Excellent. Thanks for taking the call. I know you said that you've been away for the weekend and now it's trying to catch up with the backlog of workload. So I appreciate you making some time for the call.
No problem at all. Always happy to share the stories and hopefully that inspires or motivates anybody watching.
Okay. So Gareth, tell me, who is Gareth Duncan?
Gareth, self-proclaimed youth entrepreneur, let's say dreamer turned achiever, in the sense that I had a number of goals I wanted to achieve since quitting my job in 2013. And looking back, you don't often look back and take the opportunity to reflect. And I realized I'm in a position where I wished I was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and because you're so focused on the next thing and achieving the next goal and growing and reaching new heights, you don't realize that sometimes you need to just take a step back and realize that what you've achieved now is something you've wished for before. So you need to be grateful. You need to take that as inspiration that you're on the right track. And when you're so transfixed on what's going to come next and where your end goal is, you don't really get to embrace the journey and the process. And that's something I've learned along the way. It's not easy, but it's definitely enjoyable. And you get to appreciate the fact that with hard work and perseverance, you are rewarded. So that's me in a nutshell, just appreciating where I'm going, being involved in a variety of projects. I know they say being a jack of all trades is not always good, but I tend to embrace it and get involved in as many things that I can and where I can add value, most importantly.
Okay. So I love the fact that first of all, you said that you're a dream chaser turned dream achiever. So I like that. I like the fact that you set goals for yourself and now you're out there pursuing them and bringing them to reality. You said in 2013 you quit your job. Tell me what you were doing before you went down this path of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I was a sports journalist for 4.5 years, got lucky to get in quite early. I was still studying journalism at university, and part of your course is a 1-year internship. So through journalism, I became a sports journal at a very good corporate company that offered a lot of opportunity. I got to travel, mingle with the stars, see history in live action right in front of me, see behind the scenes, which is often things that sports fans don't often see. I was a huge sports fan growing up in school, used to love rugby, soccer, cricket, etc. And then being afforded the opportunity to be behind the scenes, meeting the right people, hearing the unique stories that South African stars go through, that was inspiring, and telling the stories to the world, that was amazing. So, just being a sports journalist, I reached my ceiling quite early, 4.5 years later. After a while, you realize it's the same match, maybe different players, but same context in general. And I wanted a new ambition. And I realized, there are many other opportunities out there. All I needed to do was take the brave step towards it. So made the big decision to quit my job August 31st, 2013. I will never forget it because I was on the call with my dad, when you're 23 at the time, saying, look, I'm doing great in my job, but now I want to leave. It's not an easy conversation to have with your parents who just invested in you in terms of university studies, etc. But I was very lucky to have understanding parents because when you, at the time, 2013 doesn't sound a long time ago, but it was a different mindset in the general sense. You were told to study while at school, do while university, and get a good job. And that was your kind of line forward. You were never told that, look, if you have a passion for this, you can pursue it. If you have a business idea, you can actually put the effort into it to make it a reality. Because all those businesses were huge companies that were so far-fetched. But I refused to conform. And I think I saw people like me coming from similar circumstances achieving great things. It was in the minority, but it was happening. And that inspired me to kind of maybe there is a bit of potential going this way. And that was the big motivator to take the big step. Yeah, and then I quit my job 2013, and I never looked back ever since.
Okay, so obviously, like you said, it is a huge leap leaving your dream job and then deciding
Mm,
to chase your dreams, because obviously it's leaving something that is secure and chasing that
mm,
something that is unpredictable in a sense, especially since, like you said, the perception or the mindset of people is that you go to university, graduate, get a good job, um, be comfortable and grow with the company. But now you decide to take a different route and not conform to that.
mm.
And you also said that what helped you spark this is because you were in the company of what we could say greatness, other people doing amazing types of things, whether it's athletes. And do you think that sparked your interest to say, you know what, why don't I go after what I want in life?
100%. Definitely the sports stars. I mean, I hear time and time after every interview, I love rugby. I pursued it. I was well supported and I was encouraged. That sort of thing isn't always available to you when you venture into something that's less traveled. So sports is obviously on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe running your own restaurant or starting your own business isn't always supported as much. I think sport, you have a great talent, but my one vivid memory early on in my career was going with my parents to Kirstenbosch Gardens. I was probably like 16, 17 years old for a sunset concert and seeing a guy like Chad Simon, who's a well-known singer in
Mm-hmm.
Cape Town. And he had his first performance after his breakthrough song. And he had a performance and they told these stories from retreat, growing up a local poikie, opening for a big act. And I thought, yo, if this guy can do it, why can't I pursue my passions? Singing is his passion. He's made it a reality for him. Why can't I pursue something that I'm passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
So definitely seeing things and being inspired by similar stories is very important for our communities, because there's times that you don't have that sort of role models in your community, so you don't think like that, or you don't see the bigger picture. So having role models, mentors, it's a very important part of the process. And I mean, if we go into my initial stages of the story, I can tell you why I missed out or made mistakes where
Mm-hmm.
I could have avoided or prevented that from happening. So yeah, definitely leadership, mentors. That's very important in terms of shaping young minds and making them think bigger and aim for more.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, we are not exposed to these types of narratives or stories of people who've come from difficult situations and pursue their dream, they chase their dream, and they made a way to bring it to reality or bring it to life. And I think that is something that's lacking in Cape Town in general. The
Mm.
fact that many people they aspire to have the latest car or something that is
Mm.
materialistic, but it doesn't really it doesn't really give him something of greater value, greater purpose that they can actually bring to the world.
100%.
Hmm.
100%. I mean, that's something that polluted my mindset early on. We go to clubs, we see the guys in the VIP section buying bottles, arriving in expensive cars, and we're not told otherwise. That's not always the best route to go to, because we see on face value
Hmm.
that's the luxury of life. However, what happens behind the negative balances, the credit records, etc., we don't see the hardships of that. So that's the kind of community I grew in, that you need to do flash to prove that you are successful. But
Hmm.
with time, it materializes and you have a greater value mindset. You realize that happiness, passion, living the life that you want to be in or comfortable with, that's the big win right there. And it's unfortunate that I only learned that 4 years, 5 years down the line.
Hmm.
But I think rather than 20 years down the line, when it could have been a greater negative effect on my life. But um, it's very important to tell that story now so younger guys can start learning, because look, at the end of the day, you make your own mistakes, you learn your own lessons, and that's also a very important part of the process. But if you can steer the young one into the right direction, in the sense of don't overspend here, save money, invest here rather, that's the kind of conversations we need to have more often,
Hmm.
especially at school level, university level, because that can make the big difference in a success story. I think the biggest
Hmm.
failures come from making the wrong decisions and mistakes. So hopefully that narrative can continue and become more regular. As you say, it's very rare, but hopefully it can be
Hmm.
continue to grow and spread far and wide.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that, and it's also social media that's polluted many of our minds because people are showing you their lifestyle and we are buying into their lifestyle and not being true to what's within us and how we can bring this to the world. Because I believe every single one of us walking on this planet has something inside of us that is just waiting to be released. But it takes hard work and breaking away from, like you say, conforming to the status quo or what people think or say you should do, to carve your own path and then
100%.
get to the point where you can say, you know what, this is what fulfills me, and now I'm actually walking in passion and purpose. Then another thing you mentioned, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that that links to my one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard from Jay-Z is we're all born with a bit of genius inside of us. It's just
Mm-hmm.
up to us to discover it and then to pursue it. It's not always
Yeah.
easy. It's very, very difficult. But if you put the support behind yourself and kind of follow through, you can find or discover your inner genius. It just depends on if you have the chance or the opportunity to find it.
And once again, I agree with you, and that is something. I mean, we all have the exact same brains, so we all have the exact same capabilities to do something and create something. Yes, some people are more talented, but hard work and effort definitely will beat talent at any day. And then
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned something about reflecting. You said
Mm.
that initially it was just about rushing to get your destination, to get to the big goal, to the mountaintop. And you soon realize that, the journey is just as important and you need to take a break. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. So for those who know me, they know I'm a workaholic. There's times that I don't make family events or friends, birthday parties, etc., because work comes first for me. I got a bigger goal in mind, and I understand that I need to invest time and effort to reach that. But in terms of your own health and wealth, I mean, there's no use building a business or creating the life that you want if you're not healthy to live it. So that's one of the biggest lessons is understanding that you got to take care of yourself. Understand that you can't put in this grind 24/7. I think that's one of the most inaccurate hustle ambitions out there, that you can go every day, every hour. I think you got to take a step back at times, put the phone off, with the laptop off, and just switch off for a second or two. Enjoy the moment. But like I said, also with the reflection is don't take it for granted of how far you've come. I know maybe we compare our lives that, I want to be on that guy's level or the superstar's level, which is perfectly fine to have that ambition. But don't take for granted of that viable success. The fact that you're running a business, you're meeting ends meet, doing what you love to do, that's a big success for itself. I mean, people forget the stats. I think it's something like over 80% of businesses fail within its first year. So the fact that you are doing something that you love and you're making it viable, that really puts you in the minority bracket. So that's a perspective we need to speak more about and just make people more aware that you don't have to make R1 million a month to be successful. You just have to be viable and make your passion, which is essentially what you enjoy, your career. And that is the first step in the right direction.
hmm I like that. I like the fact that you said, you know what, it's important that we do enjoy the journey and take time for ourselves, because
Mm.
ultimately we can chase our dream forever. And even when we get it, there will be a new level. It's always a different level. It's always another level. So it's important for us to, along the journey, I think, daily at least try to carve that space where we remind ourselves of our blessings, of where we are along our journey, of the little wins, and just be able to be mindful and grateful for the opportunity to keep going, like you say, because it's a long journey. It's not only about the destination, it's about the journey. Life is a journey. So
100%.
you spoke about passion. Tell me a bit about passion. How did you realize your passion?
Well, yes. Look, I was influenced by the wrong decisions. I'll openly admit. When I was working for a company, I kind of started putting two and two together and realized, look, this boss is actually making a lot of this entire team. I mean,
Hmm
he gets that salary, the costs of production, etc. You start working it out in time, and you realize, wow, that's a huge budget change going to the top. And that was one of my big motivators. At the time, the salary wasn't able to match what I wanted to achieve in life. sometimes materialistically, but also from an experience point of view. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be able to stay by myself, that sort of thing. And you become frustrated very quickly, especially when there's a ceiling put on top of you. So my big motivator was creating a life that I could afford or pay for. So that was one of the big steps into business for me, was thinking that if I make this a success, I'll be able to put the things in place to kind of afford everything that I wanted to kind of either purchase or live with. So that was a big passion, the lifestyle element. But like I said, with time, I then started learning and discovering my true passions, which was business per se. I mean, I love going into a meeting, listening to this person's passion or business idea and helping them make that a reality. So that was my first business when I stepped into entrepreneurship, was marketing, and essentially evolved into small business building. Because I went through those experiences myself, understanding the business plan and executing accordingly, putting the right tools in place, namely a website, social media, and how to market it essentially. Storytelling, that's where my journalistic background really gave me power, is being able to tell the story effectively and attract the client to you rather than chasing business. So that was my first passion. And that didn't come from I wanted to do that. It came through living the practical and eventually evolving to that state. So I always tell people, look, if you have an idea, don't be afraid to pursue it and push it early on. It's not going to be perfect. Nothing ever was day one, but you might discover down the line, 2 weeks later or 2 years later, that, okay, this was the starting idea, but this is the final product, or towards the final product. And this is actually what I love to do. And you have to be open to adaptation and chopping and changing year and year. You got to move towards what really lures you in. So you might have this perceived idea what your passion is, but be open-minded to understand that sometimes that evolves and grows into a different dream, and you should be open to change into that. So yeah, definitely marketing, and that whole evolution was my first passion. And then the funny story was tailored suits, which was my first real investment.
Mm-hmm.
I took my first holiday in 2015 to Thailand, and on the hotel, if everybody who went to Thailand knows that there's a tailor on every second corner,
Mm-hmm.
and they lure you in. Had my first measurements done, chose the material, felt very good, and I thought, oh, I wasn't brought into this when I was growing up. I actually like this. It fits you nicely. It's made for you. That's something I became passionate about, and I was very interested to kind of explore the industry coming back to Cape Town. And with no fashion background, I enjoyed the process, meeting different suppliers, material suppliers, CMT workers, etc., understanding the machinery and the mechanics behind a tailored suit. And there was a lot of blocked doors early on. All the guys, all the tailors who didn't want to share their secrets with
Mm-hmm.
me, I literally had to go this corner, that corner to find out bits and information. And eventually I met the business partner who helped me make this a reality. So it's all about perseverance as well. So my passion for fashion, not necessarily the expertise or skill, but the passion helped
Mm-hmm.
me create my second business, and that was GD Suits. And 2016, I launched the business, and 4 years later, it's quite a recognizable brand in Cape Town now, which is something I'm very proud of, because, like I said, marketing came with a journalistic background. I had the
Mm-hmm.
expertise there, but that GD Suits business came through pure passion, determination, despite all the restrictions, the limitations, and the locked doors. I was able to make it work because I was determined to do so. I didn't take no for an answer. And that just proves that if you have the passion and expertise, there shouldn't be any excuses for you kind of to fall short. You got to pursue, push through, and just make it work. So that's one of my proudest achievements, is GD Suits. And that's now linking into a second clothing line and a few
Mm-hmm.
other creative projects as well. So that's also something that we should maybe touch on, is the fact that you might achieve certain success in a certain business, but that will open more doors down the line, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
a build-on business or a secondary business, or maybe even investment, meeting other people, coming together, putting money together and creating something exciting. That's just something that you get to experience in the process. And that's why I say, don't have an end goal and only be happy once you reach there. Enjoy the process, be
Yes.
open-minded to adapting to what you're passionate about, but also the opportunities that open along the way. I think we're very frustrated when we start off with all the locked doors and all the no's we get, but life gets easier after year 2, after year 3. It's just a patient game, and requiring all that hard work and sacrifice to get there.
Yeah, I once again I love that you said, you know what, just refuse to back down. Keep knocking on the doors, even if it doesn't want to open for you. You eventually you'll find a way. And like you said there, that you had a passion, you didn't have expertise, but you were willing to grow the skill set needed to make this a success. And that is important, as the fact that you were willing to go all the way. Weren't just willing to try this out. You said, you know, I see the opportunity. I'm going to capitalize on this and I'm going to go all the way. Even if I get a no, even if I get rejected initially, it doesn't really matter. So I like that. And then tell me a bit about, you spoke about the fact that you used to interview athletes, top performers. Tell me a bit about, you know, what is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned from them that you apply to your own mindset that's actually helped you to win?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I never actually got that before. A return question based on asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think I was inspired by the fact that the human element of people. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think you always take that into account. That although they on screen doing amazing things on the field, they're humans just like us. They have emotions just like us. They face triumphs and failures just like us. So when I interview them, I love hearing the story of how they got to where they were, the challenges, and some people have gone through serious, serious challenges to get to where they are, and what we only see is the success on the field of getting
Mm-hmm.
to a national level or achieving great success in a result. And that's what I loved, was telling stories. So a guy like Sia Kolisi, I had the honor of chatting to a couple of times in his fundamental stages. And he spoke to me about he wants to bring this country together. He has the passion for rugby and using it as a vehicle. And maybe at the time, I didn't kick in that what he was able to achieve was possible, but he
Mm-hmm.
was determined. And despite growing up in poverty, where he didn't get to eat every day, going to a school where he was afforded to go to thanks to rugby, but not being able to speak English initially. I mean, that's an inspiring story that should motivate the rest of South Africa. And there can be no excuses based on his career. Going through the trials and tribulations he has to lift the World Cup for this country. I think those human elements is something that really inspired me.
Mm-hmm. And like you said there, that they're just human beings, and it's important for us to understand that, because sometimes we put them on this pedestal and say, you know what, they're superhuman, and by doing that,
Mhm.
we're basically creating the distance between who we are and who they are. So if we are able to understand that they also have feelings, they also suffer from doubt, they also struggle sometimes with motivation, they also have their own personal challenges, but they don't get held back by those. They're constantly trying to find a solution and keep moving towards the end goal. So it's important
Mhm.
for us to then say, like, how can I adapt that approach for my own life, for wherever I am currently along my journey, so that I'm constantly able to overcome the challenges and obstacles of my route in order to summit my mountain. And then
100%.
you, so you spoke about the biggest lessons that you learned from, obviously, from the top
Mhm.
athletes. Tell me, what is your
Mhm.
biggest lesson that you've learned in being in business this far for the past 7 years?
So one of the short-sightedness I had in my early years was I'm going to make money now. I'm going to make money to spend. And
Mm-hmm.
I was very lucky that a friend of mine who was a financial advisor came to me and said, you know, Gareth, you're making a bit of cash now. What are you doing to save? What are you doing to prepare yourself for after retirement? Look, I probably won't retire. That's just the
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy I am. But you got to put these provisions in place. You never know what could happen. And that kind of opened my mind to thinking of the benefits of saving and having the correct financial literacy to kind of empower myself. So saving became a big part of my life early on because I mean I realized all this clubbing and parties, it's impressing friends and
Mm-hmm.
you know maybe having a good time for the short period, but the longevity of that enjoyment is not there. And I realized with saving it is, because now you're putting 500 rand away and it might not be a lot of money to most people, but after 2 years and 3 years of doing that, you realize, hey, you're 16K. What am I going to do with it? And I can invest into something or put it away towards the office, or you know, there's so much longevity, the long-term benefit in terms of making the right decision. So I think coming into entrepreneurship with the wrong mindset and then transforming that and realizing the correct ways of doing so,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I would always try to influence another young person coming into the industry. Um, Another lesson is not being naive. Like you or I'm the kind of guy that has the best intentions always for other people. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's always in return. But I learned very hard in the wrong ways and the hard ways that people take advantage. You got to have your paperwork in place. You got to have agreements on paper. Don't always trust the verbal agreement, because you might come around the wrong people who are not there for
Mm-hmm.
your good intentions or the business good intentions. I mean, I've had business partners run away with money. I've had people that promised me things and never given it in return. So unfortunately, we live in a
Well,
way people will take advantage of kindness, or try to. It's all about you maintaining the person that you are, but putting up the necessary precautions to protect yourself and your business interests.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also another lesson that I'll always try to teach. And the most important lesson, I think, is never to limit yourself. I think naturally, when you take away the salary of the corporate job or the safety and security of
Mm-hmm.
being paid every month, and you now venture into your own, there's that pressure of what can I do? Is it going to work out, etc., etc. So I think it's very important not to limit yourself, back yourself. I think in looking back, there was a bit of confidence, maybe slight arrogance for me to think that I was just going to do it and I was going to achieve it no matter what. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was a necessary fuel to my ambition to kind of push through, even when I was told no, even when the door closed, I pushed through and I made it work. And I think you got to have that bit of thick skin when entering the industry, because you're going to be looked down upon. You're a new guy. It's just a fly by night. You got to prove a lot of people wrong before you get a lot right.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you got to have that thick skin to push through the challenges, through the naysayers, through the negativities, and turn that into a positivity. And yeah, just being able to not have to limit yourself and push through really hard.
Mm-hmm. I like the very last point. All valuable points, but the last one I'd like to touch on the fact that you said that you have to back yourself, never limit yourself, and that's really essential because people don't believe in what we have to offer. They buy into us, and we first have to believe in ourselves that we can do what, like whether you said you started your suit business, you believed in it before you actually were able to enroll other people in your vision. And many people want others to believe in them. Oh yes, you can do that, so come, I'll pay for soccer lessons or something, instead of you saying, listen here, I am going to go all the way. And when people can actually see that this person, he's relentless and he's willing to do everything to get there, then people will start believing and buying into your vision. So that is really important.
100%.
Tell me a bit about how you started building the stick skin.
So you see, in journalism, you tend to criticize when things don't go well in the field, and you kind of rave about it when things go right. So understanding that that happens organically was a very important understanding that I had through my career. So when I ventured into it and I had friends and family doubting, maybe not intentionally or not through outright spoken word, but maybe through the body language, I could sense that they were more worried than happy for me. I think that was something I had to adjust to, and kind of depend on myself when looking for motivation, etc. Because at the end of the day, like we spoke earlier, that this is mindset that you have to do things a certain way, and when you venture off that pathway, there's more concern around that than celebration. I think that mindset has transformed today. I think there's more encouragement now than ever before. However, at the time that I was doing it, it was a lot of pressure around me because I was the firstborn on both sides in terms of
Mm-hmm.
cousins or young ones. So I was setting the standard or the precedent for a lot of the younger cousins coming through, even my younger sister. So it was terribly hard when I was struggling, and I was struggling the first 2 years financially. Look, I made a success of myself in the first 2 months, and then month 3, month 4 came, and I wasn't making money, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the experience or the business understanding to know why this was happening to myself. I was doing the same thing I did in month 1 and month 2, but why was no money coming in? And that was a terrible scare. And that kind of also fuels the negative comments that come our way. And, you know, family members trying to motivate you to go back into your career or do this rather or do that. And that's when you really need to kind of have that thick skin and remain focused on what you want to achieve. I, there is the understanding that you maybe have to take advice or adjust this and that, but never let go of where you want to end up. I mean, if that vision or that aspirations and ambitions fueled you to get there in the first place, you're already on the right track. It's all about adapting to what the market is saying back to you. Your family members or your friends might have negative things to say, but they're not the ones buying from you, or they're not necessarily your target market. You got to take the facts into account and the numbers into account. So when you go into your business, I always encourage, look, first test out the market first for you, jump deep in first time, see if you can make a sale or two, see what your target market or people that are interested in your product has to say in terms of your quality, your service, your convenience, your price, etc. All those factors help you come with a final business plan that you can pursue and push from a final accord. So there's a lot of factors, there's a lot of commentary and outside influences around you. You just got to take the necessary ones, and that's your target market and the market itself. No matter what other people say, you know, regardless of their opinions on what you're doing, it's all about, is there a market for you? Is there demand for you? And if there is, and you see the potential, then you got to push it. So it's all about using that thick skin to kind of protect yourself from understanding the inaccurate and the accurate, and realizing that you got to take what the market takes back to you and use that as motivation.
Okay, so tell me a bit about how you learn to adapt, and where did this stem from? Because many people struggle with adapting to changing circumstances, and as an entrepreneur, obviously it's essential for you to be fast, because the people who adapt the fastest tend to thrive the quickest. Okay, even in the different markets. Tell me when or where the superpower, that we could say, started to develop or stems from.
Yeah, it comes with experience. I mean, I've spoken to recently a guy that's 19 years old, and his parents afforded him the opportunity to start his own business. And I was so jealous of the fact, because I only started at 23. I can only imagine what he's going to achieve with that extra 4 years, you know. But it comes with experience in the sense that you might not realize certain scenarios or situations because of not being in that position before. So when you reach a position for the second time, you've learned, look, I lost money doing that the last time, or I bumped my head doing that the last time, or that cost me down the line, even though it was so promising early on. It just comes through practical experience. That's why when we spoke about mentors and people who have done these things before, take that advice as best as possible. And even though you're going to go on your own journey and make your own mistakes and learn your own lessons, try to avoid the avoidables. You don't have to go down the same road that cost that guy so much money, because he's giving you the advice to kind of avoid it. So it's all about gaining the necessary experience to make the decision yourself, but take advice where possible from those who've walked down that road before.
And being optimistic. You also said that has also been key, especially during the earlier days when people were telling you no. So tell me, how do you think, or where do you think this optimism stemmed from, or have you always been optimistic throughout your life?
Okay, I'm going to use Jesus as an example. Can I lift the camera, your man?
Yeah, go ahead.
Before anything, all I had in this office was this mirror and that couch. That's all. So when a client came to me, it was like a half-empty room, and but I was managed to do enough to secure the sale and follow through. And with that money coming, I was able to buy tables, couches. I kept the vintage look happening. I was able to buy rails. I was able to purchase material to make my own blazers hanging here. I was able to have all these add-ons, and that's not something that comes with overnight. It takes progress. This is 4 years of progress in the office. So you got to start small, be humble, but remain optimistic in the sense that you're going to reinvest in yourself. You're going to be able to afford the opportunities that you want to get yourself into. And that's where you got to maintain that optimism, in the sense that you can't give up because it didn't work out exactly the way you wanted to in the first year. If you got the long-term vision and you're enjoying the process, you're willing to work towards that. And that's a very important motivation that you need to have in place.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And then Gareth, one more thing. You spoke about, or through the discussion, you obviously say that you have a extreme work ethic, where you work every week, every weekend at least. Tell me a bit about this work ethic. When did you initially start being a hard worker? Has it always been that You always willing to go all the way, 7 days a week, or is it only been now when you started your own venture?
I think when you grow up, you pick up very important influences and lessons from those around you. And one thing has to be said is my father used to drive into the office every day, 6 o'clock. It was for a personal reason. He hates traffic, but he was willing to get up early to go and start the day early and put in the hours. And when I started my internship, well, when I was at school, I saw this happening. And when I started my internship, I used to travel in with him to the office.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of taking the train, I used to jump in with him at 6. I was probably there 3 hours too early, but that gave me the time to put in the extra 3 hours of work. So that was kind of bred into me quite early on, and that's kind of a functionality that stuck with me throughout. So I'm willing to wake up 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, get a few hours early in terms of work, and then that sets a great day ahead because the momentum has already started. Whereas you're only waking up at 8, 9 o'clock. I'm
Mm-hmm.
already working for 3 hours. I'm using that as motivation to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of mindset that I was lucky to absorb early on, and was quite critical to my success. Um, because when you start off, you're not always a team, or you don't have the resources a lot of more established businesses have. So you got to be the admin person, the salesperson, the quality controller, all in one, and you can only do that with time and effort. So waking up early was a critical part of that work ethic.
I like that. I like the fact that you said that every single day you gave yourself that mental win by making sure that you already outwork in the competition, or while they still sleep and you've already gotten that extra few hours of work in. And it's these little tiny wins that actually help us, like you say, it motivates us to keep going. Um, and that's a lesson that many of us can take, because we can all find 30 minutes or an hour earlier to wake up and create that extra space to, or room to start working on something that's really important to us. It doesn't mean that I have to quit my job tomorrow and then go into my business. Instead, I can see how can I start doing this on a part-time basis, where it is that I have to wake up an hour or 2 hours earlier and put in at the work and start building the foundation, so that when I'm ready, I can take the leap. Okay, Gareth,
100%.
I just want to say thank you so much for taking my call, and I appreciate the conversation, the insight you shared, and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, Karen. I wish you all the best. I trust that there's going to be many, many, many amazing stories on your podcast that's
Mhm.
going to inspire thousands of people who listen in. So thank you for doing what you're doing and giving us the platform to share our stories.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. This is a weekly podcast, so tune in every Monday to get your dose of inspiration that will help guide you in designing your version of an extraordinary life. This is Kyle Daniels, wishing you an amazing day. Stay winning.